there are 3 types of scattering. For the most part, practitioners have received insufficient information from their teachers, Acariya. It may be owing to the teacher's lack of Dhamma knowledge that they are only able to teach their students about scattered thinking. Actually, there are 3 main types of scattering within the mind. 1. Scattering. 2. Scattering along mental formations, sankhara. And 3. Scattering along the Dhamma. The reason for each kind of scattering is attributed to a different cause. Let's start with the first type of scattering so that you understand in a rational manner what causes the scattering. The term scattered refers to thinking. The cause is entirely attributed to meditating, samadhi, without having a method of thinking about Dhamma prepared beforehand. In other words, it is being one who does not know how to contemplate with wisdom whatsoever. When getting started, the information one receives is entirely about meditation and how to train the mind to be calm. After thinking of a meditative phrase, parikama, during meditation for a few minutes, the mind, citta, becomes steadfastly focused and steady. Those of the deliverance through wisdom, paññā vimutti, mindset, will want to contemplate with wisdom, paññā, once the citta attains steadfast concentration, samadhi. However, they have never prepared or trained in the principles and techniques of contemplating the Dhamma with wisdom. Because they don't know how to think in a Dhamma manner, scattered thinking arises. Scattered thinking is characterized by thoughts that are unfounded, thoughts that are aimless, and thoughts that lack any standpoint. They are thoughts that are boundless. This eventually leads to moodiness and irritation. That is why they call it the mind being scattered and irritated. This is characteristic of those with the deliverance through wisdom, paññā vimutti, personality, who have never trained in mindfulness and wisdom before. Scattered thinking occurs in everyone. If that person has trained in wisdom before and has thought about impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and not self, anatta, before, after meditating and the mind attains steadfast concentration, it will begin to think. This is what is called wisdom starting to arise. Take those thoughts that have been trained in wisdom and continue thinking in that wisdom mode. If you practice in this manner, the scattered thoughts absolutely will not arise. I sympathize with those who have received wrong information from their teachers. All the techniques prohibit thought. When wisdom is about to arise, they believe that the mind is scattering. Both the instructors and practitioners don't understand about wisdom at all. They don't know how wisdom arises, so they interpret it to mean that wisdom will arise like turning on a light switch. It will just become bright on its own. This kind of belief is a wrong perception or very wrong interpretation. If, after I have explained it this way, you still do not understand, I am ready to provide clarity. The second type of scattering is the mind, citta, scattering along mental formations, sankhara. When the mind scatters along mental formations, there is no moodiness or irritation whatsoever. This is because the mind scatters along with defilements, kilesa, and desires, tanha. There is pleasure, contentment, and desire to think in that way, and it is thought about as if it were real. Stories are imagined to engender itaramana, or pleasing preoccupations, aramana, of these thoughts. Thinking in this way falls right in line with defilements and desires. Whether you think while standing, think while walking, think while sitting, or think while lying down, the more you think, the more aroused you become. What's more, the thinking is done in a tireless manner. All you think about is sensual pleasures, kama guna. As you think, you smile. There is no weariness or exhaustion. There is skill and swiftness in thinking. It is what is called building castles in the sky and painting dreams. These sweet dreams are mental formations, sankhara. This manner of scattering is not scattered thinking, but merely scattering along mental formations. It is scattering that stirs up defilements and desires and gets them to surge along the world's currents. This type of scattering is not good for practice. Lingering issues involving something from many years ago are resurrected and pondered. Those old memories are dressed up and reimagined in situations that seem real. You get caught up in this happiness, this partaking in sensual pleasures from mental constructs, samutti, The future is the same way. The mind that yearns for sensual pleasures has a tendency to think and speculate along those themes. Things are imagined in a way that satisfies the mind's desires. Therefore, mental formations, sankhara, are like electrical wires. On its own, a single electrical wire cannot make a light bulb illuminate. There must be a positive wire, or that which is called a ground wire, coupled with it to cause illumination. Likewise, though there are mental formations, without conventions, samutti, to comprise those thoughts, mental formations cannot work. Or if there are only conventions, but no thoughts from mental formations, those conventions will merely be conventions. Whenever mental formations and conventions come together, issues will immediately arise. In this world, we exist because we have these two things, mental formations and conventions. Mental formations and conventions can form pleasing preoccupations, ittha ramana, displeasing preoccupations, anittha ramana, or indifferent neutral preoccupations, ubekha aramana, at various times. Mostly, the mind tends to seek out pleasing preoccupations. Whatever it is, form, sound, scent, taste, or tactile sensation, there is a desire for it to be pleasing. Satisfaction from getting those pleasing things can, in turn, become the cause and condition, paccaya, for displeasure. The third type of scattering is the mind, citta, scattering along the Dhamma. In regards to the mind scattering along the Dhamma, the reader might wonder how it scatters. You should read and consider this rationally, and you will understand the characteristics on your own. It isn't that those who are very educated and very knowledgeable will experience this scattering. That is not the case. They are just those who know a lot. The positive outcome is that they have become learned scholars, pahusutta, or expounders of the Dhamma, Dhammacatika, who effectively preserve the Buddha's words and teachings. They know how to arrange Dhamma topics into groupings to facilitate practice. These techniques are beneficial to the Buddhist religion. Scattering along the Dhamma similarly uses wisdom to reflect on the Dhamma. However, the difference is the mind's intent at the start. Suppose there is a desire to know the Dhamma and see the Dhamma according to the manuals. There is the belief that frequently contemplating the Dhamma according to the manuals can give rise to clear knowledge and true realization of the Dhamma. Consequently, the various Dhamma topics are reflected upon without limits, a destination, or a conclusion. When thinking about the Dhamma in this way, the more you think, the more your thoughts scatter. Little do you know that thinking in this way is merely thinking in pursuit of knowledge, or what is known as thinking according to the name of Dhamma. However, that which is the actual universal truth, Satya Dhamma, is not known. Thinking in this way for the purpose of teaching others will result in a good outcome, but thinking for the purpose of fixing one's own defilements and desires will not result in the uprooting or shedding of those defilements and desires whatsoever. There was already an example of this during the Buddha's era, Venerable Photila. Venerable Photila was very knowledgeable in terms of theoretical knowledge. He was a Dhammacatika, an expounder of the Dhamma during that time. It's a long story. Lay people may not have read about it. Go and read about it or ask a teacher to tell you about it. When Venerable Photila's mind scattered toward the Dhamma and the Buddha asked him Dhamma questions, he couldn't answer them despite being replete with knowledge. So the Buddha named him Photila, or one who carries empty scriptures. Thereafter, Venerable Photila took that Dhamma that he studied so well and contemplated on it at all times. His mind had scattered toward the mere name of Dhamma, but he was unable to attain enlightenment and become a noble one, Ariya Bukkala. In contemporary times, there was a monk who was a Chaukun, who had passed Bali Scholar Level 8 of the Royal Bali Examination and was a Dhamma lecturer. He had gone to ask for Dhamma advice from Luang Por Thoon. Luang Por Thoon asked, "Venerable Chaukun, how do you practice Dhamma?" The Chaukun monk explained his method of contemplating, paññā, in accordance with various Dhamma topics. He had contemplated the topic of conception and followed the entire sequential process until he reached the topic of the mind, citta, and mental factors, cetasika, which then led to contemplating death being not self, anatta, the four elements, jatu tatu, returning to the original elements, and how there is nothing that is an animal, person, thing, self, me, or you. He did this continually for as long as 7 days and 7 nights, but there was no release of any defilements, kilesa, or desires, tanha, whatsoever. The greed, anger, and delusion remained the same. He asked Luang Por, "What am I to do? What I have contemplated is correct in terms of the Dhamma." Luang Por Khao said, "Venerable Ācariya Thoon, while it is true that all of the Dhamma you have contemplated is correct, it is only correct in terms of the name of the Dhamma. This is because the Dhamma that you are contemplating, Venerable Ācariya Thoon, is merely the conventional name, samutti panyati, of the Dhamma. It is not yet the truth in the ultimate sense, paramatta Dhamma. It is like real money and counterfeit money. Real and counterfeit look the same and are even in the same bag. In practicing Dhamma, don't take after the manuals, but don't disregard the manuals. I'll leave you to discern how you will practice, Venerable Ācariya Thoon. If you follow the manuals exclusively, the Dhamma will be correct according to the manuals. It is called scattering in Dhamma. In knowing the Dhamma and seeing the Dhamma, the knowing and seeing must be accomplished with jnana and tassana. Jnana, or knowing, doesn't mean knowing the manuals. Jnana doesn't arise from sanya, or memory or recognition. Jnana results from a cause. As for the cause, that refers to dassana. If there is knowing after seeing, that knowing is not wrong. Dassana refers to seeing. Perception or view simply refers to wisdom, panya, because wisdom is the cause for perception. If there is seeing followed by knowing, no wrongness will arise. It is like seeing an elephant and knowing that it is an elephant, seeing a person and knowing it is a person, or seeing the truth and knowing that it is the truth. That's why it is called tassana jnana, or seeing before knowing. Jnana tassana is knowing before seeing. When practicing, one must be skilled in both. That is, skilled in jnana tassana and skilled in tassana jnana. This is because some ultimate truths, such as Dhamma, must be known before seen, while others must be seen before known. If the method of contemplating the Dhamma is not understood, even if the Dhamma is contemplated well and correctly, the thoughts will merely scatter along the name of the Dhamma. However, no knowing or seeing will occur. It will not lead to the attainment of the path and fruit of enlightenment, Makkapala Nibbana, in this lifetime. This is because that contemplation of Dhamma is merely contemplating the principles and theory of what is recollected, sanya, from the manuals. It is not the level of practice that will enable the true knowing and true seeing of the true doctrine, Sat Dhamma. That Venerable Ācariya Thoon admitted that he had contemplated the Dhamma according to the recollections of what he had learned from manuals, and it had turned into memory wisdom, sanya panya. Thus, it was the scattering in Dhamma according to memory, sanya. I sat there listening, and I remember it well. If you have any misgivings, I am ready to provide advice so that you understand in a way that is aligned with right views, samma titi. Thereafter, the Venerable Ācariya Thoon took his leave of Luang Por Khao. I never heard anything about how his Dhamma practice turned out. If you know a lot of Dhamma, but are not comprehensively wise in terms of mindfulness and wisdom, it will become difficult to select a Dhamma topic to practice that is compatible with your own mindset in order for the mind to eliminate defilements. Practicing Dhamma is not a problem at all. However you practice, it hits on the Dhamma anyway. The important matter is whether or not the Dhamma topic that you use to practice will enable the mind to remove, release, and reduce various defilements and desires in order to completely eradicate them from the mind. Dhamma practice is a direct means of fixing the mind's problems. As for knowing the mind's problems, in the depths of the mind, there must be mindfulness and wisdom that is truly thorough in order to be able to eradicate all of the mind's problems. This is the important point in the practice of Dhamma.